And our first presenter of the evening is Vedant Kothari. He is the president of MuReva Phototherapy. Vedant, go ahead and share your slides.
Excellent. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Vedant Kothari, and I am the founder and CEO of MuReva Phototherapy. And we are developing a medical device to treat mouth ulcers or oral mucositis, which is the most common, debilitating, and expensive side effect of cancer therapy. Thank you, everyone, for your time today, and to the AngelMD team for giving me the opportunity to share our story with you today. If you're unfamiliar with oral mucositis, OM is a common side effect of radiation and or chemotherapy and affects about 1.4 million patients in the United States and EU per year. Oral mucositis is characterized by an inflammation and ulceration of the soft tissues within the mouth, leading to severe pain and inability to eat or speak, and is widely considered to be the most debilitating side effect of cancer therapy. In particular, patients with head and neck cancers will experience OM the most. Virtually all of these patients will get oral mucositis, and about 85% of these patients will progress to the most severe form. Many of these patients will also have a feeding tube inserted prophylactically. We see head and neck cancer patients as our initial target population since they have the highest level of need. Unfortunately, there is no adequate solution for oral mucositis today, and costs can very easily escalate to as high as $20,000 per patient, especially when they must be admitted to the hospital. Physicians prescribe high doses of narcotics for pain and recommend oral rinses to prevent infection, but many times must resort to interrupting treatment due to oral mucositis. In fact, in 47% of head and neck cancer patients with severe OM required a treatment break, and it has been well documented that even a 5-day break can lead to a 15% decrease in long-term survival. Phototherapy or photobiomodulation is a specific use of doses of light to stimulate wound healing. And while it has been clinically proven to be effective, it has not been adopted in the United States due to limitations in laser light delivery. These lasers must be operated by a clinician, are limited to delivering light one small point at a time, and can take upwards of 40 minutes per session to deliver the daily therapy. It is just not possible for physicians to spend up to 40 minutes per patient per day to treat a side effect of cancer therapy, making PBM delivery currently cost prohibitive and unpractical. So how does photobiomodulation work? Well, you start with the primary intervention of 660 nanometer light being absorbed by the mitochondria within the cell. This immediately catalyzes the production of ATP to create energy. Second, it displaces nitric oxide, which is a vasodilator to increase blood circulation to the delivered area. And then finally, it intrinsically stimulates small amounts of superoxide, which has been linked to many downstream wound healing pathways. This leads to cellular changes via cell signaling pathways such as the TGF-beta pathway or the AP-1 pathway, which occurs within seconds to minutes. And finally, this leads to the macrocellular response of wound healing, which effects continue for hours to days. As you can imagine, PBM is currently being utilized to treat many different conditions, from ischemic stroke injury in the brain to diabetic foot ulcers. In this case, there are over 35 articles demonstrating PBM's ability to not only treat oral mucositis, but when used prophylactically, it can bolster the tissue and prevent oral mucositis from occurring in the first place. However, as well evidenced as PBM is, it has not been practical to commercially adopt due to the limitations of daily laser administration. We have solved this issue by developing the MuReva Phototherapy system. The system consists of a soft, thin, and flexible illuminated mouthpiece that is capable of targeting all of the oral mucositis susceptible soft tissues simultaneously. A full treatment only takes 5 minutes, and the best part is that it does not require a physician to administer. MuReva's core innovation is a waveguide technology that we invented, allowing for high-power, controlled light delivery in a patient-friendly format, utilizing new advancements in optical technology and advanced silicone polymers. This led to over 42 patents and patents pending. Each patient, speaking about the business model, each patient receives their own mouthpiece, which they use on a daily basis for 6 to 8 weeks, immediately prior to their daily radiation treatment. About 30 to 40 uses, and then they dispose of the mouthpiece. And this allows us to capitalize on a per-patient basis. Now, before starting clinical trials, we wanted to validate that our waveguide technology would perform equivalently to lasers. So we ran several tests. The first thing we looked at was ATP production and oral keratinocyte proliferation to confirm that our device simulates the fundamental mechanism of PBM. Then we did a cell migration scratch assay to prove that our device can promote wound healing in a 2D wound healing model. Photobiomodulation is a very safe form of therapy, and in the thousands of articles that have been published, not one adverse event has been reported. And that's why we've been given non-significant risk designation from the FDA. Because of this, we have now transitioned to clinical trials and hope that our device will emulate the results from the over 35 publications demonstrating statistically significant results using photobiomodulation to decrease the incidence of oral mucositis, oral pain, usage of opioids, frequency of treatment interruptions, and of course, improve the patient's quality of life. We have so far enrolled 29 patients as part of our initial unrandomized, unblinded portion of patients, and while it's too early to share scientific results, the early findings are promising. All patients have well tolerated the daily treatment, there have been no adverse events to report, and all of our PIs agree that patients have materially benefited. We are very excited to share the results once we complete the pilot portion of our study by the end of this year. Here's a review of the milestones that we have completed. The technology was initially developed with the support of a $1.7 million SBIR Phase 1 and Phase 2 grant from NIH. We have since raised $4.35 million in private funding to help us complete our initial clinical trial. As I mentioned previously, we are now live in clinical trial. Here are some of our clinical partners across New York, Ohio, and Kentucky. We've also had multiple meetings with the FDA for them to review our approval process and pathway, and they've given us both non-significant risk and breakthrough medical device status. We are now targeting FDA authorization for 2023. We have put together a strong team of experts to work on this project. Looking at our core team has many years of experience developing medical devices and management of clinical trials. We're also working with some of the top experts in the field, such as Dr. Parveen Irani, who's one of the top PBM experts in the world and the president of the World Congress of Photobiomodulation. We're also working with Dr. Nathaniel Treaster, who is the chief of oral medicine at Brigham and Women's at Harvard Medical School and is a top oral mucositis expert. We're also working with some great consultants who are leaders in de novo submissions and have great FDA relationships. We've used them to foster a collaborative relationship with the FDA. I want to thank you for your time today. And again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me at my email listed below at vkotari@murevapt.com. And please check out our website at www.murevapt.com. Thank you so much for your time today, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Great, Vedant. Thank you so much. Thank you for telling us all about MuReva. I'm going to start us off with a couple of questions. I'm pretty impressed with your kind of preclinical studies. Can you tell us a little bit more about how your clinical trial is set up, and are there any early results that you can share with us?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. So here's an overview of our current clinical trial. As I mentioned, we're currently live and enrolling at 6 centers across Ohio, New York, and Kentucky. The primary objective of our study is to demonstrate a 30% reduction in the incidence of severe oral mucositis in head and neck cancer patients receiving concurrent chemo and radiation therapy, really the most aggressive chemotherapy and radiation regimen. The protocol is a daily administration of PT immediately prior to the patient's daily radiation dosing. And outside of just looking at oral mucositis grading, we have other statistically powered endpoints that we're looking at, such as the pain score, opioid usage, salivary flow, patient's ability to retain swallowing on a daily basis, and we're also doing a weekly quality of life questionnaire as well. As I mentioned, we've enrolled 29 patients so far as part of this initial unrandomized portion, and the early results have been promising. All patients have tolerated the device well. There have been no adverse events to report, and our PIs agree that all of our patients have materially benefited from use of the device.
Fantastic. Well, we have many questions from our audience, which is, again, really exciting. Keep them coming, everybody. Lewis said, this is really very interesting. He has 2 questions for you. Is it possible to use this prophylactically, i.e. before treatment, to prevent mucositis? And second question, will this be relevant for esophageal mucositis via an NG tube type device?
Those are great questions. Yeah. So first of all, I want to speak to the first question. Let me answer your second question first. In terms of the different applications that we have for oral mucositis, the purpose of this study is really to prevent oral mucositis progression. So we are starting the study, the usage of the device on day 1 of clinical trial of radiation therapy to prevent the progression of oral mucositis. But we do hypothesize that in the future, we can do further studies where we start the study about 1 to 2 weeks before the patient starts radiation treatment. And we believe that will further improve the results and prevent any evidence of mucositis from occurring. We're also, looking at, actually our device has been designed especially to deliver light as far down the oropharyngeal region as possible, but it would be possible to potentially deliver light via some sort of NG tube to get further down the throat. We're actually looking at a way to potentially deliver the light from an extraoral perspective. We have patents that we've filed for trying to deliver light extraorally, actually through the neck of the patient, to treat mucositis that occurs further down the oropharyngeal region.
Great. And I'm assuming, on that same line of questioning, I'm assuming that this treatment could have other applications. Have you thought about that?
Yeah, so when we look at the future growth potential for MuReva, I look at it in 3 different buckets. The first one is to expand our patient populations. We're right now focused on head and neck cancer patients, but the first area we want to expand is looking at other cancer areas that lead to high incidences of oral mucositis, such as bone marrow transplant patients, leukemia and lymphoma. And there are some specific chemotherapy agents that are very aggressive by nature, like 5-FU, that we're also targeting. We're also looking at other oral supportive cancer care applications that can be treated with our current mouthpiece design. For example, xerostomia or dry mouth, dysphagia and difficulty swallowing, and we're also looking at trismus as well. And then finally, we're looking at other parallel opportunities in oncology as well that can be done in conjunction with our mouthpiece delivery. For example, radiation dermatitis, which is a similar type of ulceration that occurs on the dermis, on the outside of the skin. It's a very severe sunburn, and we believe we can also prevent that with some sort of pad emitter that we could use in conjunction with our intraoral delivery device.
Great. We have a couple of questions from the audience about your business plan. So a few, again, like I said, what is your reimbursement plan? What components of the device have the recurring revenue, i.e. which parts are the consumables? And then one other one, is the design of your business plan that the patient comes to the office, or is this a device that goes home with the patient?
Okay, fantastic question. So starting with the business model, we're using a standard, razor blade model. We're hoping to sell and lease the control units, as you can see here, to the radiation clinics themselves. And then we have the disposable, the razor blade piece of this, which is this, we call it a disposable because the patient uses it for about 40 uses and then it's disposed. Right now we're targeting a price point for about $4,000 with the device. And we're targeting a gross margin of about 85%. In terms of reimbursement, we put a lot of focus on this. Since we've gotten breakthrough medical device designation from the FDA, we're anticipating getting reimbursement immediately through the CMS Medicare coverage of innovative technologies pathway, which gives immediate reimbursement to breakthrough medical device companies. But we're also a very natural fit with the new oncology care model, which is pushing radiation clinics towards more bundled payments. Our device does a great job not only improving patient outcomes, but also reducing significant costs. The last thing I want to question is where the device is being used. So right now, radiation patients come into the therapy for daily treatments. And so the first initial, the natural progression initially was to just use this about 5 to 15 minutes before they come in for their daily radiation treatment. But we do have the potential to make this a take-home device, which would also allow us to kind of expand our market from not only just radiation-only patients to patients who are being on chemo-only regimens as well.
Great. So one last question. Are there areas of the oral cavity that are not exposed to light with the device?
That's actually a really great question. And so with this, this is our initial approach at designing the mouthpiece. As you can see by these emitters, we have 2 wing emitters that sit between the teeth and the cheek to deliver light to the buccal tissues. And then we have this inner S-curve emitter, which projects light to the hard and soft palate, the tongue, and actually also projects light to that tonsil region. We're actually right now investigating testing a second mouthpiece, which actually further increases the delivery area of our device. And actually it goes underneath the tongue. So we can get better access to the ventral tongue, the ventrolateral side of the tongue, and then also the floor of the mouth in order to even further improve our results with salivary flow. So this is something that we're currently testing, but it could be a secondary mouthpiece that would give us full then 360 coverage of the entire oral cavity.
Great. Well, Vedant, again, thank you so much for being here this evening. Thank you for sharing with us about MuReva. For our audience tonight, I just want to let you know, I realize there are some questions that we did not get to in the Q&A. After we've completed all of the pitches, you will actually have the opportunity to network with all of our speakers as well as our sponsor from 7 to 7:30 Mountain Time. And that will give you an opportunity to ask any questions that you were not able to get to in this Q&A session. So Vedant, again, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me, and I'm looking forward to meeting some of you and answering any questions you have at the post-networking session. Thank you again for your time.